get started, I have a few questions to you. First and foremost, let me also introduce myself. I'm Emilia. I'm currently heading marketing at Userpilot, which is a product growth platform. Well, what does that mean? It can mean a lot of things. We basically help other SaaS companies improve their product adoption, drive expansion revenue for building in-app experiences, be it for user onboarding or feature adoption or user engagement. So the topic of product growth, product-led growth is quite close to us. And when I saw Gonçalo's title on LinkedIn, I was like, I need to reach out and learn more about this role. So what does it mean exactly to be a growth product manager? How is this role different from a regular product manager, Gonçalo?
Yeah, so as we'd like to say, like a core product manager takes care of the long-term roadmap of the product, essentially, like which features, what the problem is, where it's going to grow, what the part of the features that's going to need for those clients. The growth focus on three main areas, essentially, and the KPIs of those areas, which is acquisition, retention, and monetization. So it's growing the revenue, growing the number of users that are acquired, growing the number of users that are retained, how they do that, and how to loop that, essentially, how to use those parts, those numbers and those users to roll them in again, and how to lower the cost of acquisition by the product, essentially. That's what the growth product manager does.
So it's kind of similar to marketing, right? In a sense.
In a sense, yeah. Usually marketing throws money at a problem and creates campaigns and does stuff like that. And the product growth product manager uses the product to do that growth by itself. So that's why it lowers the cost of acquisition. Usually, that's one of the metrics, to lower that and not just throw money at it.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. So it's like in line with, the whole product-led growth.
Yeah, exactly.
Movement. And it's like basically a dedicated role for that. So like, how did you end up in this role? Tell us a little bit more about yourself, well, obviously you didn't go to school thinking, oh, I'll be a growth product manager one day, right? When I grow up.
Yeah. So I started as an engineer 15 years ago or more. And I was always that annoying engineer, always asking why and why we're building this and why this feature matters for these users. And do we have any hints that these users are going to use this feature just like based on our intuition or something? And then I understood it was product was my thing, that I want to try it out and understood as like not really product per se as a core product manager, but growth, because it takes care of that part. It's really fast changing and it's really working with assumptions and really working to understand those assumptions and testing out a lot of things. I like that part of the unknown unknowns and testing everything. I get bored when I just get one thing to do for 6 months. So I like that part of the growth that is experimenting and changing stuff every day and every week. I like that chaos, essentially.
Wow, that's quite unusual for an engineer, right? Because you guys seem to be very sort of organized and like the opposite of chaos lovers.
I was a bad engineer, that's a problem.
You like to move fast and break things. Yeah, that's super interesting. Yeah, because sometimes, you come across these, especially smaller startups that are built by engineers rather than product managers. And you can tell because today, for instance, I was talking to customer support specialist from a product that seems to be built by engineers. It was like, the campaign search tab. They basically slapped the search on top of a page with a large number of items, right? Because I was asking them for it because I couldn't find anything, just scrolling endlessly. They didn't have pagination. They didn't have any filtering or sorting or search in this campaign tabs. It was nightmares, you can imagine. So they added the search tab, but they forgot to save the state. Right. So whenever I'm clicking on an item and then I'm going back, I need to search again. And I'm like, dude, right?
Great user experience there.
Well, I mean, Right, but moving back to the topic of growth product manager, what other responsibilities exactly, apart from breaking things and moving fast and, you know, experimentation, like what were your KPIs, you know, as a growth product manager, you know, at Crisp, or at other roles that you basically had?
Yeah, it depends on the area that you're working on. So there's three main areas: acquisition, retention, and monetization. So by the end of the day, all of it goes to the MRR or ARR. So the growth of the money, like the revenue of the company. But you usually, like on acquisition, you focus on getting more users by the same price. So how do you optimize the sign up? How do you optimize the sign in? How do you optimize all of that stuff so you get more users in? Like how do you optimize the homepage or other pages? Where are the best pages? Which are the best pages to convert and stuff like that? And then on retention, what makes the user be retained? Like what is the aha moment? What is the conversion moment, the activation moment? What is the retention moment? How they like the habit, how they build the habit. But that's the focus of the retention. Then monetization is essentially like, are the plans okay? Is this like the feature awareness is okay? Are users understanding the features that they are paying for, they need to pay for? They are like, do they understand what's the difference between the freemium and the paid version, stuff like that, essentially. Those are the most common KPIs, but essentially the goal is to understand what are the opportunities here. Like you need to understand what is the flow and what are the loops and how they are working. If the retention is, or the numbers are going down from 1 month to the other, or a couple of months, you need to do something. So that's finding the opportunities rather than just testing stuff, essentially.
Right. Finding, so like this is experimentation with the opportunity in mind. So you need to come basically like with a certain hypothesis.
Yeah, it's looking for metrics, looking for going through the analytics a lot, going through the analytics and going through those dashboards, understanding those dashboards. What is the flow, like the regular flow that you have from acquisition to payment, to conversion, right? From the sign up until the conversion, that's the regular flow. Then you can have loops like the referral loop and stuff like that to understand how those are converting, those are performing, are they underperforming because of something happened, then you need to address that. That's the opportunity finding. Or you have like customers that come in with some problems. Talking with customer support is always a good thing to understand which users are complaining about what, and you can like use that to grow. Something that is missing from marketing, or marketing wants to test something out, also an opportunity.
Gotcha. Right. So it sounds like, well, maybe, I don't know, honestly, I wonder, is there like a one size fits all? Are there like some rules of thumb at these different stages? So say acquisition, retention, monetization, that all SaaS companies can apply, like best practices? Or is it just that, well, every company needs to look at their data, do the like create a hypothesis, experiment, and then come up with their own like playbooks?
Yeah, there's some playbooks that you can follow, like the big companies did, how they did, like you follow like Slack or Miro or stuff like that really applied PLG and really went into hypergrowth with PLG. Those you can like try to follow what's their playbook, but then you have to adapt for your SaaS. Essentially, like is it B2C? Is it B2C2B? Is it just B2B? How do you go to that? Like, do you have a freemium? Do you have a trial? How do you work that out? What's the paying features of your freemium, testing that out and understanding how can you convert it better, can you convert it worse, what type of company do you have, what's the time of lifetime value or the time to habit for your user, is it set and forget or is it daily thing, what's that a lot of stuff, a lot of variables are here, so you need to understand which are your levers and what works for your SaaS company, and then test it out and see how that works for your company.
Yeah, gotcha. By the way, if anyone in the audience has any questions, just feel free to plop them here in the chat. Yeah, and you can leverage the screen time with Gonçalo here. But yeah, that brings me to another question, really. Can you remember any specific experiments, right, from your career that like works really, really well? And, you know, maybe you can share some numbers, like what was like this lever, as you mentioned, that helped you, for instance, improve the sign-up rate significantly, or maybe the retention rate?
Yeah, I remember a few. So like for the conversion rate, the signups, one of the things that I found, I tested a couple of different companies, and it worked similarly between some of the SaaS companies. It was either adding a video directly on the homepage, or adding the sign up, the email sign up, or filling the form directly on the homepage instead of going to another page. So
Oh, okay.
that's small things that remove some friction from the user. That's most of the things. It's like behavioral analytics and understanding the behavior of your users. So you need to help them out to help you out, essentially. So giving some intent, or giving some thing that they is out for them to understand what the product does. So you need to make them understand quickly, like 10 seconds, so they understand what the product does, and then give them right away the opportunity to move forward into the sign up, instead of just like pressing a button, going to a different page, and then signing up from there. If you start the process earlier, it's going to be easier. On the other hand, we tried removing too much of that process and moving everything into one step, and that didn't work. That removing all of the friction, there's some good friction there. Like users are used to some sort of flow. So going to the sign up, entering the email, and then entering a password, and then confirming or not confirming. There's a flow they need to have to feel secure. So if you remove too much from it, they won't feel secure.
Oh,
So
wow.
they won't sign up, essentially.
Interesting. So what was like the thing that was like too much, the tipping point? It was increasing and then it stopped.
Yeah, it was the removing everything, just putting up all the sign up in the homepage,
Uh-huh.
and then having that part, that's element to change into the password confirmation, or the code that you received on your email. That was too much. Users didn't understand what happened there, and it was less friction. They needed to like feel they went into the sign up flow.
Mm, right, right. So someone is asking, like, could you please share some of your use cases from your experience with Crisp specifically?
With Crisp, let me see what I can share. It's pretty recent. There's some stuff we tested out that I can't share yet. So we tested that part of the email and the sign up and the video and all of it.
Mm,
And one of the things, the use case was to do it. It was already good conversion rate, but trying to improve even more. So that example that I gave of the thing that went wrong, it was on Crisp, essentially. We
mm,
tried to remove all of it and put it on the homepage, and that went down the signups. And
okay.
then we tried it out having the video, and just having the video that didn't change anything. Having the email form didn't change anything. Moving the demo section upper in the page, the homepage, also didn't change anything, but everything together really have a lift. So there's
Wow.
also something that
Compound. Mm,
that is the thing that it is one of the rules of thumb of
mm,
growth. It is you can't iterate into innovation. You just need to change. You can do the other way around. It is test one of each part and see if it works. If it's something is the lever. If it altogether is the lever, not just one thing.
right. Yeah. So that's super interesting because, yeah, it's like with cooking, right? You have
Yeah,
several ingredients, and I don't know, potatoes, carrots, and chicken stock alone don't make a soup, right? But if you put them together, right? So
yeah,
sometimes you need to experiment like with the combination and also the,
yeah.
like amount of the different variables. So yeah, that becomes quite tricky. I remember in Crisp, like on the homepage, you also like
Mhm.
had pre-boarding play. So in a sense, you took a little bit out of your product and put it on the homepage so people could play. Well, for anyone that doesn't know, Crisp like cancels out the background noise from your Zoom calls, etc. So you could like play background noise of lawn mowing or a dog barking, and like play with Crisp versus without Crisp, like what's the sound quality. So I found this super ingenious. And yeah, in a sense, like, would you say that also had a big impact on the signups? Like people understood Crisp more?
That's the demo section that helps a lot. And that's another thing that usually works for most products, that is giving the users the ability to try it out before signing up. So if you can do that directly in the homepage, or just get him in there and then ask for the sign up afterwards, it's way better. It's the same what the marketeers call the hot lead. It's the same effect. You get the user hot, so interested in your product. If they get to the aha moment, is like when they understand, the aha moment is when they understand that the product solves their problem. So if you can do that before signing up and then request a sign up afterwards, usually works really well. So that's what Crisp does with that demo section, when you can try it out beforehand. And then you understand, okay, so this is what you're going to do for me. So I'm going to sign up for this.
The aha moment, this is super important, because sometimes you land on these B2B pages and you're like, there is this catchphrase because everyone is trying to create a new category now. And you're like, what does that even do? And I feel like if in 8 seconds you can't figure it out, like you're leaving because it's just too much effort.
We had that problem at OutSystems. The homepage was really B2B, because most of the product is for developers to develop for other companies, essentially in low code. So we tested out having the video there. There's like a product video on the homepage, and the signups increased like 5 or 10%, between 5 and 10%. Because the users understood how the product was used, and that's not the decision maker, but that was were the users that would convince the decision makers. Essentially, that's how product-led growth essentially works. Like you create advocates in the companies so they can afterwards request the decision maker to buy that product.
Bottom up, right? So the homepage can't speak only to the decision maker, it should also speak to the end users.
And each page is for the decision maker, but you need the product to call and grab the most of the users, essentially.
We have a lot of questions from the audience, so everyone's super excited. But yeah, kind of, well, you also gave me ideas for our homepage, honestly, with this Crisp example, because a lot of our users are like, product growth, you know, and when we could show them how easy it would be to build these in-app experiences, to build like, say, a tooltip to explain a particular feature and then customize the colors, etc. So I thought of like creating a micro, you know, embedded app where the, you know, visitors could just like play a bit with changing, you know, the fonts or colors and see what the experience in our builder is like. So yeah, I will experiment with that and then maybe share the results, because we're actually launching a new website in a couple of months. So this is something that is actually coming. Thanks for the inspiration.
Welcome.
And moving on to the post sign up, so retention related experiments, we have a question that is slightly related to that. Do you have advice on how to increase internal interest in driving usage within a platform? So user engagement, I presume B2B. Often in B2B with long-term contracts, I see teams focus on building features that sell rather than features that users will actually use. Talking about fancy features here, not essentials. This question resonates with me so much.
So user intent, essentially, if I got this right,
increase internal interest in driving usage within a platform. So like essentially product usage, because a lot of product teams build these fancy features that sell, but then the actual users don't use them.
Don't use them. It essentially goes to the metrics. Is like if the feature sells and it works for the decision makers, which is essentially B2B, there are the decision makers. You can either show them that those decision makers that the feature is not doing well, so it's not being used by their users, and try to like experiment on that and see like, we need to change this feature into something that is usable. Or you can understand the need like that from the perspective of that decision maker, that one like a fancy feature to do something, and try to adapt it to those users, like understand, okay, so there's a need, this need just for those decision makers. Like imagine managers want to manage some the teams, and then the teams don't use that feature, but that's essential, right? That the managers need to manage those teams.
Yeah.
If it's just that, you need to build those features.
Yeah.
Like if it's something that you see there is a need from the other users, the teams to use, but no one's going to prioritize that, you need, if it's just B2B, it's not product-led growth, it's going to be hard to do that, because you're not looking for the monthly recurring revenue from those users, or how to grow that into growing to another bigger teams. That's the problem. It's just B2B and sales driven. It's going to be sales driven. So it's what convinces the sales-led growth. If you want to change into product-led growth, that's a different question, essentially. Then you need to change the mindset of the company to be product-led growth and not just sales-led growth. And I would start small by like improving some stuff with testing in the signups and showing like, now we have more users, and then we can create teams, like having a freemium, try it with the freemium or try with the trial. And within the trial, have some metrics from that, and try from that grow into the your own organization. So showing that product-led growth can be the way, and not just sales growth.
Yeah, I mean,
sales
growth, I think like the problem is that a lot of companies still don't appreciate how short-sighted it is to neglect product-led growth. Well, you mentioned at the very beginning, when you kind of introduced the role to us, and saying that your job is to reduce CAC, right? So it's not like with marketers that they throw money to acquire these new users. And like, that's also how sales-led growth often works, that you promise them all these amazing features. And then when the users, like, you know, they gave you their credit card, they're through the door, suddenly all the problems appear that they didn't realize on the demo, because they didn't have a chance to, like, say, build these 200 campaigns, and then only they realize, oh, there's no search, right? And I often see companies like that prioritize these, as one of the attendees said, fancy features that, you know, look good on the website, in favor of the quality of life improvements that actually make the users happy, right? And that make them engaged, and they make them basically satisfied with the experience. And I'm thinking, you know, I'm in this right now with a couple of tools. I'm saying, like, I don't know how to do this, I don't know how to do that, right? I'm having problems with this, that, and that. And there's no in-app guidance. Sometimes there isn't even no chat or no resource center. And I'm talking to the customer support, and they say, like, oh, let's jump on a call. And do you know what? And I was like, today I almost lost it. Sorry, I'm really getting to the point. And I said, like, look, we've already jumped on 4 calls. I'm about to bring 6 people into this app. Like, imagine what's gonna happen then, right? And like, how should we kind of convince them that it's not just about sales, but it's also about reducing the cost of, you know, not only acquisition but support? Because if we need to jump on a 30-minute call, right, every time we have like a tiny UX issue, or we don't know how to say change, it was like a stupid thing, like how to change the sender, right? It was so buried. There was no guidance. There was no like support in-app. Maybe there were some help dogs, but like, who goes, you know, searching for help dogs these days? So like, how do you feel about that? Don't you feel that like you have to sort of justify your existence and your job all the time, because people still often don't understand that it's important to have these experiences in-app?
It depends on the company. If the company is sales driven, essentially, it's going to be harder to change the mindset. So it's the start small and then start proving the value from that. It's like, okay, so you got more users, now we got this account because we got the freemium. It's what we call the PQLs, the product quality leads. So it's essentially that. It's creating a model for that. Like, So if the users go to the trial and create this account and use it at this point, because we know from the metrics that is like the habit moment, they create the habit. And from there, like if there's a team of three people and using already, it's going to be a better product quality lead. So if you can call them after that, so if you can create that type of model and show that there's value there in the small part of the product, like try to have that on your own and try to show value from that, then you'll have more buy-in from the other teams. Like you have marketing helping out also, because they will have better, if you start like MQLs from that and help out with the product, and then go to the PQLs and just drive those sales into the sales team, and sales will be like easier to convert those sales instead of the other ones. So like product is bringing, or growth is bringing better leads than we can find. Let's help out product, or let's help out growth. So it's the other way around, like showing bottoms up value and then lending them to sales, a hot lead already. They will see the value because they will have less work, but they will convert and have their fee essentially from that sales. It's going to be easier for them to see value and like have more people in the company to vouch for you or vouch for your team or growth team essentially.
Yeah, that's kind of pre-conversion, right? Like, but
Yeah.
I'm even thinking of like the paying customers. Like, how on earth does it add up, like in terms of unit economics, right? If I'm paying like $99 or sometimes like $20 for an account, and these companies just want to jump on calls all the time or have basically support chats that are live. And I had another situation with a big well-known company. I'm just thinking maybe it's like all the VC funding that have spoiled them. And I was chatting with a sales engineer who was probably paid like $120,000 per year, for their job. And she was responding to me, a person who's an engineer who's coding, etc., like, oh, you need to add a comma to the filter, right? Because essentially, there was no like enough guidance and things weren't working. So every time something wasn't working for us, we couldn't know that because these things are like idiosyncratic, right?
Yeah.
So like, why do you think there's so much reluctance to actually providing enough guidance?
I think that's a UX matter essentially. It's like understanding the user behavior or not looking to the behavior, not looking the bottlenecks that you create for your users. So if you're selling to companies and then you have those companies or B2B and you have those accounts and don't care about anymore, and then just throw customer support at it and you don't do anything, it's like helping out. I would say helping out customer support to automate most of it and create like remove those bottlenecks from customer support teams, it would increase the usability and would increase the user experience. What I see is like companies prefer, since they are used to work like that, siloed and working in the same way, and customer support is like, okay, we need more customer support instead of optimizing customer support. And that's one of the things that growth always looks for, is like optimizing the processes, optimizing how things go, how users go from one end to the other. That can help, but it's more of a user experience rather than growth question here. Like, does the company care about user experience or not? Because if it doesn't care, like you'll have problems like you described. Add a comma to this and it will solve your problem. Yeah, it's not my problem. It's your problem because you made it wrong. Essentially, I don't know that I need to add a comma. It's like, is that really a problem that it needs to be solved, or is like a question of usability there?
Yeah, or at least when you have certain patterns that cannot be predicted, right, or that are atypical, then like leave some, I don't know, a native tooltip or whatever, because not every interaction has to be a support chat. Right?
It shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be, because it's frustrating when I have to wait for someone like 24 hours, to proceed with setting up the campaign. Then of course I'm losing motivation, and of course I'm becoming disengaged, right? And some people, if they are in the trial phase, they will just like not even write to support, but they will assume, oh, it's not working, I'm leaving, right? And
exactly.
another tool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you think, like a more philosophical question now, that product-led growth is achievable, or is it like a fad that, you know, people are just talking about it, but they're
Yeah,
not really practicing it?
it is achievable, but it's hard. That's the
Mm,
thing. It takes a lot of time. It takes the change of mindset. You need to have a growth mindset in the company. You need like the sales team to understand that it's not them that's gonna drive the sales. It's gonna be product that's gonna be driving all of the intention and all that. Most of it essentially, and delivering more value to the team, and also marketing, and then marketing understand what is the growth, and having product marketing working with the product and growth. It needs grow. Essentially, product-led growth is a company-wide
mm,
motion, not just a growth team motion. You can't just like hire a head of growth and then deliver product-led growth alone, or having a couple of developers there or a designer and then change the whole company. It needs to come from top down. The
mm,
CEO needs to understand that there's a need and there's an intent there. It's going to be improving the company. It will drive the growth 10x year over year, essentially, if you want to reach that, and not just the sales. So it is achievable. It has been thrown around a lot right now, and it's like growth everywhere, growth marketing, growth sales, growth whatever. It's been at least growth has been thrown around a lot.
yeah.
So it's hard to get the right people, get the right understanding. What is the product-led growth? How it's done well? What it needs to be done? What are the levers? What are the best practices? So that's one of the matters right now. That's going to be. It's hard. It is a young thing. It's 10 years old at least when it started. I think in Facebook. So it's only 10 years old. It's
Mm.
pretty young um, thing.
Wow, this is huge. Like thinking about product-led growth in terms of a mindset rather than, you know, like a specific hack, say we're going to open a free trial and now we're product-led.
No.
No.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. What would you say, like, are the top three, you know, best practices or some, you know, like best plays that you would recommend people in your position, so growth product managers should try from your experience?
So like plays, they're not really plays. They're not like playbooks for product-led growth, essentially. Like in marketing, there's a play for this or that. Like YouTube, you should do this, or Instagram or TikTok, now you should do something else. It with product-led growth is essentially understanding the type of sales that you have, what is best for your company. Is it free trial? Is it the trial or a time trial? Do you need hand holding or not hand holding? Like what it is? It's understanding what is your aha moment, what is your habit moment, what is your conversion moment, understanding all of those levers on your users, understanding that the main three types of users, the casual users, the regular users, and the power users, and what makes them move from one to another, and then changing those, trying to convert more casual into regular.
Mm,
That's one of the best practices, essentially, how to grow better is from the casual ones, it's like the ones that go one day and don't come back, or you just go once a week, like in Miro, for example. They have the free trial, the freemium. Essentially, you
mm,
have 3 boards, and you can create everything on those 3 boards, right? And you can invite a lot of people to that. So that's the main paywall. So if you're a casual user and you use it from time to time, you will use those 3 boards essentially for everything. You don't need anything else. But when you grow into teams and you grow into someone else, or you have clients or anything else like that, you will need to change and open up and pay for it. So
mm,
you'll feel that limitation. So you need to understand what are the walls and what are the minimum required the user needs to move on into a better product experience, so they will pay for it. That's the thing. And it's different for each product and every product. So there's no playbook for if you do this and that, it will change. You can learn from the best ones like Miro and Slack, like I said before. And from those ones, you can test out if it works for your product or not.
mm.
You can like understand, is it community led, or is it content led, or is it user content, or your main content and stuff like that. You need to understand if it works for your product or not.
Gotcha. But yeah, if you like even have this generous, as Miro does, freemium model, then as you said, like it might be a completely different use case that only will allow this person to convert. But if you had groomed them with your product, right, into sort of being a Miro person, right, then they won't want to switch to something else once they have this use case, when they need to say upgrade because they need to invite a lot of people, whatever. I recently started using Miro after like struggling with a lot of different tools to build a proper big org chart with like a lot of connections in between, and then I tried Miro for that. Like, you know, a convert now. So obviously, if it was for me to choose like which tool my team would use, right, I would go with that, right? Yeah, that's definitely interesting. And a last question to wrap it up, kind of, if there are any aspiring growth product managers in the audience, what would you recommend them they should do to break into this career successfully?
So first of all, invest in yourself and to learn how to do, and what's the growth mindset essentially. I would say go to Reforge, invest. If you have in a company, if you can, it's quite expensive. If you can have your company to pay for it, go for it, and like go through a cohort of the product-led growth and experimentation one, or learn that there's the growth one, there's the holistic one where you learn the basics of acquisition, retention, monetization, and experimentation. That's the one that I advise to start with if you want to break into product-led growth or growth product management. Also read the book, The Hacking Growth, which is kind of the Bible of books for growth and experimentation. Learn the experimentation, how to do A/B testing or other experiment types, and test it out essentially. If you can like test on your product and get some experience there, starting with the experimentation, it will give you some lever against another person that didn't try yet to do product growth. But yeah, that would be the start.
Gotcha.
Follow people that talk about it, like on LinkedIn or whatever. There's a lot of people that do that.
Could you name a few like that you've been following, for instance, to learn from?
Yeah, Elena Verna is one of my mentors. I love her and everything about product-led growth. She's one of the well-known people. There's Lenny. I don't know his last name. It's hard. Yeah, that one. Yeah, Len is really good too on growth. And there's people like came from Slack and Miro. Those like head of growth are there. If they write something, I would follow them because they have a lot of stuff. But those two are really good.
Cool, great. This was so value packed. Thank you so much. I'm mindful of our time. But it just flew. So yeah, it seems everyone else also enjoyed this
You're welcome.
live interview. If you guys want to ask some follow-up questions later, you know, feel free to reach out to Gonçalo. What is the best way to reach you, on LinkedIn or? Yeah,
LinkedIn for professional stuff would be LinkedIn. If you can find me, like search for my name, I'm gonna find it. Or Twitter. Also, I'm on Twitter too. But usually I post a lot of stuff that I learn or things that I'm investigating on Twitter. Oh, sorry, on LinkedIn. I'm trying to get more articles and more experience out there.
Awesome, brilliant. We'll definitely be in touch. Thank you so much for today.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of your evening.
Bye, everyone. Bye.